First of all, thanks for meeting with me like this. Last Wednesday, the 11th, was 20 years since David Mann died.
Right.
And you know, he was a really big influence on a lot of people, certainly me and what I've done with my motorcycles. And I thought who better to talk to than you, who spent so much time with Easyriders magazine and working with David, and I'm sure you had a lot of interactions with him over the years. What is your favorite David Mann painting?
Was one of the first where he's on a hill in San Francisco and he's on this chopper and it's late at night and he's sharing a joint with a girl on the back of the chopper. And to me, that painting just said it all. I mean, that painting was just amazing.
My number 25 pick is Ghost Rider. I wouldn't have even picked Ghost Rider for this list, but I know it's a lot of people's favorite. Number 24 is Night Choppers. I always loved the way David made the headlights and the chrome look at night. Number 23 is White Line Brothers. That's where I come up with the idea for the Peterbilt oil tank on some of my motorcycles, driving next to trucks. Number 22 is Redwood Run, panhead and shovelhead rigid choppers packing old ladies in the redwoods.
I think a lot of younger people probably won't be familiar with the fact that David Mann, really got his start in through publications with Ed Roth and Choppers magazine.
Right.
And that style is so different. The style from the Ed Roth 1960s Choppers magazine stuff into the early 70s is way different than what happened mid 1970s.
Number 21 is Hollyweed. I always loved the way David did the Hollywood lights at night.
Do you know anything about that change in style?
Well, I think Dave's talent was just beginning to emerge. And I think prior to that, his stuff was just a little rougher, but it had more action. It was less posed.
I look at a lot of his early compositions, and I don't know if you're familiar with this artist. I think he was a 16th century Dutch painter named Hieronymus Bosch. It looks like David Mann's early stuff where there's just people and motion and action everywhere.
Right.
There's really not a whole lot of depth to it. It looks very flat like his early work. I always wondered if that was what inspired him. And, I got to know him later in his life where I didn't have the chance to ask him the questions I would like, what I want to ask you.
Right.
Number 20 is Needles Highway. I love the straight-on perspective and packing bed rolls and old ladies in Sturgis. Number 19 is Memorial Day Run, more chrome and headlights at dusk. 35 years after the original, New Hollywood Run capturing perfect Hollywood nights. Number 17, Hollywood Run from 1964 captures David's early style. The pack gets pulled over by the law and my number 16 pick, Run Heat. The title of my number 15 pick couldn't be more true, Damn Sporty Won't Start. Number 14, In Memory Of. His old lady is gone, but he's got everything he needs. I'd been on Sunset Boulevard at night in the 1990s, and it looked a lot like my number 13 pick. Fantastic early David Mann style from 1972, number 12, Midnight Run. I love everything about my number 11 pick, The Dilemma. You know we'll find a place to put her. Rounding out my top 10 is The Launch, and this has happened to me more than once and more than twice. There's so much lifestyle captured in Biker Wedding, early David Mann from 1967. The wild party scene of Blueborough made it an easy squeeze in my top 10 at number 8.
One of the things I love so much about what he was doing, what David was doing, especially with the earlier stuff, there was so much club one percenter lifestyle to it. And then it eventually transformed into, I would say, a lot less club lifestyle and more anti-establishment, anti-government type of lifestyle that he would include with the motorcycle part of it.
Well, you're right. And Dave was in the El Forsteros.
Right.
And I'm thinking back to like when I came back to Easyriders in '87, and Joe Teresi was the publisher. And Joe was really kind of pushing the yuppie side of it. So it's all about custom motorcycles and kind of the lifestyle and kind of the fun aspect of it, look much less about the clubs. So yeah, there was a major shift then.
I've been over the Daytona Main Street Bridge hundreds of times. David captured it perfectly in my number 7 pick. Number 6, David captures club life in the early Ross Studios Blackboard Cafe. Had to have Tijuana Jailbreak in my top 5 with Ross Studios 1966. There's something special about the chroma headlights at dusk on Family Run, my number 4 pick. We used to do this on the last Sunday of Daytona Bike Week, but this scene captures Main Street so perfectly. My number 2 pick is Saturday night, Sunday morning for so many compelling reasons.
When were you the editor at Easyriders magazine?
Well, I started in 1971 on the 3rd issue of Easyriders, but I was just working part-time. I was going to college. I had just got back from Vietnam, and Lou Kimsey came over to a buddy's house. I had helped him build a knucklehead, this friend of mine, and I had it was a rat bike. A buddy of mine gave me this issue of Easyriders, and it was a new magazine came out. Anyway, I started talking to Lou, and he said, well, why don't you come over to the office? And so I went over to their office, and he offered me a job. It was like $50 a week to be the manager of a bait. And that's how I started. And but within a month or so, I started writing bike features and helping out in any way I could, because I was the first full-time employee. So we had a secretary. Denise Pearson was the art director, and me.
Yeah.
And we were and Pete Chido, who was the photographer.
Right.
And so I slowly worked my way up the ranks, and I became the editor probably in '76 or '77. And then I left in '81, and I just decided, Lou and I weren't getting along real well, and I decided I'm going to go do something else. And then in '87, after the magazine had gone through a bunch of turmoil, and Joe Teresi took it over at that time, Joe asked me if I'd come back. And so I stayed on as the editorial director of all the publications, the editor of Easyriders, and ultimately the executive vice president of the company. And I stayed on until '99, and Joe sold the company went public, and I said, I'm out of here.
Prison Release from August 1982 is my absolute favorite David Mann painting.
David gave me a painting that he did, and on the bottom he wrote a personal note, and it said, I love the art that your bikes have become. And
Right.
to me, it was a huge gesture on his behalf, but I'm like, my bikes became the art that you painted in the first place.
Right.
And it really, whenever I was looking for an idea or an inspiration, I would go to an old Easyriders magazine and I'd look at the bikes in there, but I'd always look at the David Mann paintings
Hmm.
to inspire me. And it was
Yeah.
funny that he would, I told him that and he was touched by it, but it was true.
And then there's this. This is a print that David gave me, and I think in 2003. And it's So Long Cold Hello Daytona. And David told me it reminded him of me because I'm always at Daytona Bike Week because I'm so close there. And David signed it by hand and wrote me a personal note. To Billy, love your art that the bikes have become. And that's, to me, is kind of the ultimate compliment coming from one of the ultimate artists of all time, in my opinion, for him to call my bikes art when he was such a big influence on me. Really means a lot to me. So this is one of my prized possessions, and I'll keep it till the day I die. Thank you, David.
No matter what comes out of Milwaukee next, custom Harley Davidson, especially choppers, they always look cool. No matter
You
what.
know, and David Mann is behind every one of them,
Yes,
you know,
I agree.
in a sense, where, the choppers can go away and we have FXRs or whatever it is. But when they come back, it's like they're just bringing Dave back.
Yes.
The guy was amazing. He was amazing. And he was before, he was the guy that started everything that we're looking at today, and he still represents it.
That's well put.